Welcome to the FDOT Commitment Tracking Procedure Training. Your presenters today are Sue Clark from the Office of Environmental Management, Erica Hewitt from District 3, and Heather Chazet from District 5. If you have any questions on the information presented today, please use the chat box in the GoToMeeting control panel. We will respond to questions at the end of the presentation. The objectives of the webinar are to help you become familiar with the Department's Project Commitment Tracking Procedure and the Commitment Module in Project Suite. Erica Hewitt will demonstrate how to enter and track commitments, link commitments from the Project Development and Environment Study to design segments, and generate a project commitment record. Heather Chazet will discuss best practices they use in District 5 for commitment tracking. A commitment can be a critical component of a transportation project. It is defined in the procedure as an obligation to an external entity that the department will complete an action at a later phase in project delivery. Project managers from Project Development and Environment, or PD&E, design, right-of-way, and construction need to coordinate throughout project delivery to ensure commitments are tracked and fulfilled prior to project completion. In November 2012, the department established a commitment tracking procedure to ensure consistent tracking of commitments. This procedure was updated in 2018 to include the use of Project Suite and applies to federal and state-funded FDOT projects. As a transportation project advances from PD&E through design, right-of-way, and into construction, the department may make commitments to external stakeholders. Commitments made by the department must be tracked throughout the life of the project and fulfilled at the appropriate time. The project commitment tracking procedure can be found on the department's Policy and Process Management website. Here are the key definitions from the procedure. As stated earlier, a commitment is an obligation to an external stakeholder to provide a feature or perform an action related to a project that will be implemented in a future project phase. An environmental commitment is a subset of commitments which are identified in the PD&E phase and included in the environmental document. An environmental document is defined as the results of a PD&E study, which include the following types: environmental impact statement or record of decision, finding of no significant impact, also known as a FONSI, categorical exclusion, State Environmental Impact Report, or non-major state action. Project Suite is the department standard system for documenting, transmitting, and tracking project commitments. It is also used to generate a project commitment record when required. Commitments are tracked using Project Suite's commitment module. To access Project Suite, navigate to the FDOT InfoNet page. Look under Technology on the far right panel and select Enterprise Applications. A list of all applications available will appear. Note that the applications are listed in alphabetical order and Project Suite is listed toward the end of the page. Once you open Project Suite, you will need to add the FM number of the project you are working on in the Go To Project field on the left-hand corner. The commitment module can be accessed by selecting Commitments on the module menu on the left side of the screen. You can select either the commitment module or the environment module. Commitments can be added by using either the environmental module or the commitment module. A user's ability to update or add information in Project Suite is dictated by your permissions or privileges. You can contact the Project Suite District Administrator to confirm or change your permissions. When a user selects the Commitments module, all of the project's commitments will display on the screen. Note that you can display all commitments or those in PSEE or the Right-of-Way Management System, also known as RWMS. RWMS is a web-based computer application that is the primary computer application used by the Office of Right-of-Way to record, manage, process, or report information related to right-of-way business processes and programs, including right-of-way commitments. Project Suite automatically pulls right-of-way commitments from RWMS into Project Suite. If the user selects the Environment module to view commitments, only environmental commitments will display. Commitments added using the Environment module will automatically be identified as an environmental commitment. An environmental commitment is a commitment in an environmental document. Other project commitments will be added through the Commitments module only. Here's a screenshot of the data fields for each commitment. Only the fields with a triangle are required. The fields with the yellow arrow are required. Other fields are optional but may be useful to include if the information is available. The fields with the green arrows, description, and comments commitment update fields are not required but include important information about the commitment. Let's take a look at the required fields. Type. A commitment can be an environmental commitment or project commitment. As stated earlier, an environmental commitment is a commitment from an environmental document. A project commitment is any other commitment that is not documented in the environmental commitment. Title. You will need to include a brief title for the commitment. For example, if the department made a commitment to have an archaeological monitor on site during construction, the appropriate title for this commitment can be archaeological monitoring. Current discipline refers to the current phase of the project. Disciplines include PD&E, right-of-way, design, or construction. Status refers to the status of the commitment. This will indicate whether a commitment is in progress, fulfilled, or transmitted to another discipline. Made date. For an environmental commitment, the made date is the date the environmental document was approved. For project commitments, it is the date the commitment was made to the external stakeholder. And finally, name. This is the name of the external stakeholder the commitment was made to. The description is the actual commitment. For an environmental commitment, this field is the commitment language that is included in the environmental document. The Comments Commitment Update field is the area where the user can add more details of the commitment status. If the commitment status was changed, the new commitment language can be included in this field. Or if a commitment status is fulfilled, details of how and when the commitment was fulfilled can be included in this field. As stated before, these fields are optional in Project Suite, but should be populated to have a complete project commitment record. Let's discuss the status of a commitment. A commitment status can be added, changed, fulfilled, in progress, or transmitted to the appropriate phase. The status of the commitment is critical in communicating to others involved in the project whether a commitment requires further action from the department. Commitment added can be used by the project manager once a commitment has been added to a project. For example, this status is used by the PD&E project manager when the commitment is added to a project after the environmental document is approved. Commitment added can also be used by other phase project managers as needed in design or construction. Commitment changed is used by project managers to indicate that a commitment's purpose or title has been changed. Commitment in progress is used to indicate that the action or obligation is ongoing. Commitment fulfilled is used to indicate the department has fulfilled its obligation to the external stakeholder. And commitment no longer valid is used to indicate the commitment is not applicable to the project at this time. Sometimes the status of the commitment identifies a transition from phase to the next phase. Once the responsibility has been transferred, the project manager for that phase has the responsibility to track and update the status of the commitment. Transmit to design is typically used by the PD&E project manager once an environmental document has been approved and the responsibility has been transferred to design. Transmit to construction is typically used by design PM to transfer the commitment to construction phase. For example, If an environmental document includes a commitment to construct a wildlife crossing, the PD&E project manager will enter the commitment into Project Suite after the environmental document has been signed and will choose Commitment Added as the status. Once the design phase of the project begins, the PD&E project manager will change the status to Transmitted to Design. The design PM is now responsible for updating the status of the commitment. The status can be changed to In Progress and then later to Transmitted to Construction when it is transferred to the construction phase. We'll show you how to update a commitment status later in this training. Before a commitment is added to a project, the Project Suite user must update the environmental document information in Project Suite. You will need the project's class of action or document type and approval date. For federal projects, the class of action is Type 1 CE, Type 2 CE, Environmental Assessment or Environmental Impact Statement. State-funded project document types can either be non-major state action or State Environmental Impact Report. The ETDM, or Efficient Transportation Decision-Making Number, and status of the environmental document can be included but is not required. Let's see how the environmental module is updated in Project Suite.
Updating environmental document information. The default for the environmental module will state, Environment section has not been set up yet, and action is required before the submodules are visible. This initial setup is required on each project individually. Once this setup is done, the project will not have to be set up again. The information from this module is pulled into the individual commitment and populates on the Project Commitment Record, or PCR. To begin, navigate to the appropriate project, verify the project number and the project info title bar. Then, open the module menu and select the environmental module. The environment module will be displayed. Because the environmental date and the environmental ERC submodules are read-only, they are already visible. Click the Set Up Environment link. Now, you will select a status. There are two choices. If the environmental document is still a working document, then select In Progress. If the environmental document has an approval date, then select Complete. Then select the appropriate class of action. Enter the approval date, the ETM number if you have it, and click Save. If the ETM number was there, it would be a hyperlink and link you to that application. Once the environmental module is set, there is an option to edit the information by clicking Edit. The only information that cannot be edited from here is the environmental contact. Once changes are done, click Save again.
Once the environmental module is updated for a project, you are now ready to enter commitments. Let's take a look at how to add commitments to a project using the commitment module.
Adding a commitment to Project Suite. The option to add a commitment to Project Suite is based on privileges. In this section, Commitments Created Within This Project, there is a link that says Add Commitment to PSEE. This will appear if privileges have been granted. Click on this link to begin adding a commitment. A new window appears. This is where the details of the commitment are entered. The triangle indicates fields that are required to save the entry. The first selection is the commitment type. Based on the privileges granted, these types can include project commitment and environmental commitment. Next, select yes or no if the commitment being entered has an impact on an existing environmental commitment. Then, type a summary of the commitment. This is the title to differentiate commitments on a project. The current discipline is selected from the next drop-down. This is the discipline or FDOT office currently responsible for the management of the commitment that is being entered. Based on the current discipline and the project managers listed in the address book, the project manager drop-down will be filtered. Select the project manager from here. The correlating discipline and contact type can be found in the help document of the commitment module. Then, a status for the commitment must be selected. This is a list based on the current discipline selected. A list of all possible statuses and their meanings can be found in the help document for the commitment module. The transmitted date, the responsibility of managing a commitment, is passed from one discipline to another. This date field should be updated only when the status of transferred to is selected. The FAP number will appear if applicable, but this field is not editable. This information pulls from the financial module. The description or detailed explanation of the commitment is entered now. This text box allows for the entry of up to 4,000 characters. The environmental document type and the approval. This information is entered and maintained in the environmental module. The made date is the date the commitment was initially made, and the commitment approval date is the date the department officially agreed to the external contact that the commitment would be done. The due date is next. This field is not required, but it can be used to identify the planned date to have the commitment fulfilled. The authorized by is a representative from the department who approves the commitment with the external contact. The implementation discipline identifies the discipline or FDOT office where the commitment is expected to be fulfilled. The fulfillment date is the date when the obligation to the external contact has actually been fulfilled. This field is necessary to identify a commitment is complete. The comment commitment update field is a checkbox of 3,000 characters. This is a place to add notes, specific comments, and/or details about status updates. This is a great area for storing information to be accessed and used by other users who may be responsible for this commitment. An entry here is optional, except when the status of commitment changed, commitment fulfilled, or commitment no longer valid are selected. This field is limited to the number of characters per comment. However, it is not limited to the number of comment entries. Every commitment requires a commitment made to field to be entered. This is the external contact who the commitment is made to. This area is connected to the address book of external contacts. There may be times when the contact is already in the address book. Have been addressed. The required fields have been updated. Click the Save button at the bottom. The commitment will be created and displayed in the commitment list. When it has been created, you may add more information, such as documents or additional contacts. Also, the commitment can be edited and removed depending on privileges granted.
In the Project Suite Commitment module, the user will have the ability to link commitments from a PD&E study to subsequent design phases. Some PD&E study projects are divided into multiple design segments. A PD&E study may have several commitments, but not all commitments may be applicable to all design segments. The linking function in Project Suite allows the user to link only those commitments that are associated with the appropriate design segments. Commitments are tracked for a project based on the original environmental document that was approved. In this example, the original PD&E study on State Road 574 extends from Mango Road to east of McIntosh Road. It was subsequently divided into 3 design segments, as shown here as segments A, B, and C, with the appropriate FM numbers. Commitments from the environmental document may apply to all 3 design segments or just one design segment. The linking function allows the user to create the appropriate connections in Project Suite. When a commitment is linked from a PD&E project to a design segment, the status and the comments commitment update fields can be managed separately from the PD&E study in Project Suite. The value of linking commitments becomes more apparent when a project commitment record is generated for the PD&E study or the design segments. Let's see how to link commitments from a PD&E study to subsequent design segments.
Linking a commitment in Project Suite. There are occasions where a commitment needs to be tracked on 2 different projects. An example of this could be the commitment from a PD&E study that also need to be included and tracked under the design and/or construction segment. The commitment will have attributes that must remain the same no matter the project number of the segment, and they must be updated under the original PD&E study. However, the status will be managed at each project or segment level independently. This is why the link synchronize feature was created. Similar to the copy, we're going to expand the appropriate commitment by clicking the plus sign. Then we're going to click Copy Commitment. Now the box opens for us to enter the project number of the design or construction phase. Then you will click the Link Synchronize box and then click the Create Copy. Project Suite has rules built in that will not allow a commitment to be linked back to the same project. Now that a new window has opened with the new project segment in the title, itself is not editable. It is linked to the PD&E study and must be managed there. Any changes made at the PD&E study level will update automatically in the linked commitment of the design or construction segment. This applies to the commitment type and description as well. There are a few fields that do require your input. The current discipline must be selected, and the status. Once the fields for the new commitment are updated, click the Save button. The newly linked commitment will now appear in the subsection titled Projects Linked to this Commitment. This subsection has the project number of the linked segment as a hyperlink and can be used for quick navigation to that segment in Project Suite.
Commitments can be entered in Project Suite once the environmental document is approved and during subsequent project phases. The same steps as shown earlier are used. If a commitment is being added during design, the user will need to make sure the appropriate design segment FM is used in Project Suite. For environmental commitments made during design phase, it is important for the design project manager to coordinate with the district's environmental management office. In this example, the PD&E study is FM 217838-2. There are 2 design segments with FMs ending in -3 and -4. If the commitment is applicable for segment -3, the user will need to input that FM into Project Suite to ensure that the commitment is being added to the appropriate design segment. The user then scrolls to the commitment section and selects Add Commitment to PSEE to add the new commitment. The same fields will be required as when adding a commitment in PD&E: type, title, current discipline, status, made date, and information about who the commitment was made to. The description and comments commitment update should also be filled out. Updating the status of a commitment is important so project managers can know the status of the commitment. Let's see how to use Project Suite to update the status of a commitment.
Updating the status of a commitment in Project Suite. As commitments move through the life of a project, the current status will need to be updated. Also, from time to time, an existing commitment may need supporting information to be updated. The process for these two scenarios are the same. Locate the commitment to be updated, then click the Edit link to open the commitment for editing. Update the status, and other fields as needed. Once all of the fields have been updated, simply scroll to the bottom and click Save.
A project commitment record, or PCR, lists commitments from an environmental document and shows the status of each. The PCR can be generated for the PD&E project after the environmental document is approved. It is required as part of the reevaluation documentation. Reevaluations ensure compliance with applicable federal and state laws prior to advancing a project to its next major phase, such as right-of-way or construction. The reevaluation approval confirms that the findings of the environmental document remain valid. The PCR will be generated for the reevaluation using the PD&E study's FM number and is required to provide the status of each commitment at the time of the reevaluation. For more information on reevaluations, please refer to Part 1, Chapter 13 of the PD&E Manual. A PCR can be generated for individual design segments as needed. The PCR generated for design segment FMs can facilitate discussion and transfer of commitments to the construction office. It is provided directly to construction office for their use and updating until construction is complete. Once construction is complete, the status of commitments would be fulfilled and should be updated in Project Suite. Let's look at how a PCR is generated using Project Suite and details of what information is shown on the form.
Printing the Project Commitment Record, or PCR. The PCR form number 700-01135 is the official FDOT form used to track commitments. This report is available to all Project Suite users. Open the project the PCR is needed for and navigate to the Commitments module. You're going to click the View Project Commitments Record link in the top right corner. The report is generated to include the commitments created within this project, all RWMS commitments, and all commitments linked from another project. A new tab will open in the browser window. The report is viewable on the screen. In the top left of the screen is the page navigating tools that allow you to page forward and backwards within the report. The PCR can be downloaded by clicking the arrow next to the Save button, and you may choose from Excel, PDF, or Word. Let's begin exploring the PCR by reviewing the header and footer of the report. In the header is the PCR title here, along with the form number and the addition of the PSEE label in the left side. The footer contains the FM number for which the report was printed, a page count page numbering, and the print date, time, and stamp of this report. The first section of the PCR includes the FM number that the PCR was printed for, the project name, FAPs, if they are applicable, The environmental document type, environmental document approval date. The second section of the PCR will list all the commitments created within this project for the PCR. For each commitment, the title will print first on the gray line, then the name of the individual who the commitment was made to, its status, if the commitment is an environmental commitment or if it affects other environmental commitments, the implementation discipline, transmittal date, and the description of the commitment is included. While there may be several commitments or notes related to the commitment, only the most recent will appear on the PCR. Also listed for each commitment is other projects linked to this commitment, its status, and its most recent comment as well. The third section, as we navigate through, is commitments linked from other projects. Commitments linked here will list the originating project number, more than likely this is the PD&E study, and its title on the first line. The details listed are the same as the fields in the second section. The fourth section of the PCR will list commitments from the Right-of-Way Management System, or RWMS. Just like the previous two sections, the commitment title is listed first, then detail fields are listed. These are slightly different. The individual who the commitment was made to and the description are included. RWMS commitments have a conveyed date and a parcel number related to each of the commitments included.
And now we will hear from Heather Shazay, who will share best practices for communicating with different offices to update the project commitment record.
Hello. So we've talked about entering commitments, updating the commitments, and generating the PCR. I now just want to talk a little about tracking them until completion at the end of construction by sharing some challenges we've had faced and solutions we've employed here at District 5. Starting at the beginning, after PD&E is complete, the PCR gets transferred to each subsequent phase at the completion of the reevaluation for that phase. Although when design overlaps PD&E, the commitments are just passed on to the design PM at the time of PD&E completion, as there won't be a reevaluation. Here in District 5, I currently serve as the single contact processor and tracker for the reevaluations. So I perform the updating and provide the reevaluation with the PCR to the appropriate contact person in the next phase, with the last reevaluation being the construction add reevaluation, unless the project is design build, where there may be a design change reevaluation during construction. So that has previously meant that when the commitment tracking is out of EMO's hands and was passed to construction, we had no mechanism to close the loop at the end of construction, ensuring that the PCR was closed out. Well, a couple of years ago, we were contacted by the construction office because FHWA had asked them for some completed PCRs, and it came to light that although they were following the commitments, they were not aware of the need to complete the PCR afterwards. So we worked with them to clarify what was required and where in PSEE the PCR is kept. Please change the slide. From that, they instituted a new protocol where they provide this guidance document to the project administrator at the beginning of construction, which outlines where the PCR is kept, what their responsibilities are, and what the procedure is. It also contains my contact information in case they have any questions. At the tail end of construction, they also have added a reminder regarding the PCR and the project administrator reminder notice sent out after final acceptance, and have it on the final acceptance checklist as a document that needs to be supplied. Additionally, if the project administrator did not find a PCR in Project Suite, they contact me to find out if there is one, as their processes are the same for minor or major projects. If it's a minor project that doesn't have a commitment, like most of our minor projects do not, then I send them an email stating that, and they submit that email as their documentation. I will also help them fill out the PCR at the end if they have any questions or need any additional help. This system seems to be working to close the loop and ensure that the proper documentation is happening at the end of construction. As you can see, this is the old process. Please change the slide. I will be updating the document with the new process here shortly for them to understand how we will now be handling the commitments in Project Suite. Another challenge is the completion of the PCR at the end of LAP projects, especially projects that receive LAP funds that in a prior phase that are now JPAs for construction. To address this issue, what we've implemented here is to add a requirement in the LAP JPA agreement that states that they are to be submitted, to submit a completed PCR to EMO at the end of construction. We also attach the PCR document to the agreement. Since they will not have access to Project Suite, I will then update the Project Suite with the information. So these are some processes that we have put into place to help close the loop. If you have any processes or mechanisms you have found to work, it would be great if you could share them with us outside of this presentation.
Thank you, Heather. For more information on tracking commitments, please refer to these links. The commitment tracking procedure is on the department's Forms and Procedures website. Project Suite can be accessed at the department's OIT Enterprise Applications homepage. The commitments chapter of the PD&E manual can be accessed from the Office of Environmental Management's website. The Project Suite help documents are also available as well. And we will also be posting additional user videos on how to complete more advanced functions in the commitment module. We will now answer any questions that came through the chat. Does anyone have any questions?